Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, first of all, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you to your family for their sacrifice as well. Let's talk spectrum. We did in my office. I want to get it on the record. This committee would be disappointed if I didn't follow this line at some point. I've heard from over 30 senior DoD officials in hearings over the last 2 years, including every service chief and 8 combatant commanders, that vacating the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band of spectrum would have a significantly negative consequence for our warfighting capabilities. In fact, the Department of the Navy previously estimated that relocating your systems to a different spectrum band would cost them $250 billion. Both the Navy and the Marine Corps intend to make extensive use of capabilities which require the electromagnetic spectrum to function in the Western Pacific against China. Admiral, does the Navy have capabilities operating on the 3.1 to 3.45 gigahertz band and the 7 and 8 gigahertz bands of spectrum, which would be used in a conflict with China?
Senator Rounds, thank you for this and for championing this for our time in the office. I appreciate you hammering it because it is so vital. All of my critical weapon systems, electronic warfare systems, communication systems, everything that I do pretty much to conduct high-end warfare operates in these bands. Asking me to maneuver outside of that, I'm not sure how we came up with the number 260. I would have probably given you infinity. And so it's just really, this is a 100-year project to go to retune the Navy's combat system to move outside that band. So I would implore anyone that's thinking about doing that to not do that and allow the Navy to actually operate in the bands you described, Senator.
Thank you, sir. And I think the other question that I would ask is some people think that there's an easy way to simply just share the bands with commercial operations. Would you care to comment on that, sir?
Well, Senator, what I found, and this is from my experience in my current role as U.S. Fleet Forces, is there's strict rules that the FAA and the FCC and others actually have in the sharing. And just with our certification events, Comp 2X we call it, composite training exercise to certify our strike groups for deployment, requires careful navigation in these frequency bands just to get the authority to do our training. So if I get constrained further to do that, I just think it'd have detrimental effects to our Navy, our ability to deliver combat-ready forces.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we discussed in my office the likelihood of being engaged with multiple adversaries in multiple theaters at some point in the future. Most observers assess that our adversaries will seek to press their advantage in the event we are committed in another area, particularly given the increasingly close coordination between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. How can the Navy be better postured to maintain deterrence in multiple theaters?
Well, Senator, let me just say first, we've only had regional conflicts since World War II because we have a nuclear deterrent. So there can be no chinks in that. So we want to make sure that if there is a conflict, that it doesn't go global. So we must continue to fund all legs of the strategic triad. That just goes without saying. The second part is we need the Navy the nation needs from the amount and capacity so that the presence and posture into the critical areas to squelch any opportunism is put at bay right away. We're not going to be able to do that alone, Senator. That's going to have to be with allies and partners. Partnerships and making sure NATO carries their weight, making sure partners in the Western Pacific carry their weight and are with us on this to give us the actual capacity we need if we're going to actually confront two peers. And so I think the partnerships are crucial to that as well.
Thank you, sir. Admiral, the Navy's shipbuilding plans and the SIOP call for long-term investments to modernize fleet and sustain undersea deterrence. We've talked a lot about that already today. Let me ask you just a question. It's about time we start talking about how we fix the existing stuff we've got out there. Since 2017, I've asked about the USS Boise as an example. Los Angeles class attack submarine. It's now been out of service, not even able to dive, I believe, since 2017 or 2018. Over 9, almost 10 years now, at least in that neighborhood, being out of service, setting in dock, waiting for its half-life to be completed. Is it time we just simply pull the plug on that one and start looking at other stuff?
Well, Senator, you know, it's like a dagger in my heart as a submarine officer when you bring up Boise to me because it's an unacceptable story. But it's a story of where we walked away from a private capacity, our private yard's capacity to do in-service repair decades ago. And as a relief valve to an oversubscribed public yard, we decided to induct 3 ships into Huntington Ingalls and a couple in the last several years into electric boat. Because of the lack of investment in those areas, because we did walk away from that, I think both of those yards had some learning to do before they were able to get up on the step. And that learning has not been quick and it's not been effective. And without a clear demand signal of what unit's coming after Boise, I worry that effort won't be applied to Boise to get her completed. So working with the Secretary of the Navy, I want to take that on if I'm confirmed and look at that hard. The decision whether or not to actually walk away from Boise is a big one, and I want to make sure I clearly understand the trajectory and trends, but I hear you loud and clear, Senator, on how unacceptable it is, how long she's been in the yards.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Senator Rounds. And Admiral, let's